The UK public believes that government should play a substantial role in providing key services. This is at odds with one faction within the Conservative Party that believes we should have less government and lower taxation. This approach was prevalent in the 1980s with Thatcherism and Reaganomics. However, for the past 25 years, that economic approach was pretty much rejected and a more pragmatic approach adopted by both Conservative and Labour governments. Don't get me wrong, we certainly haven't had anything like left-wing interventionist economic policies during that period. After all, we had the 2010 Tory government that imposed crippling austerity on the country. But you could describe all governments during this period as centre-right social democratic governments. Cameron, May, Johnson, Sunak, none of them are right-wing ideologues. And I think that the reason for this is that the public don't support discredited free market policies. That said, the free market, less government, low tax faction in the Conservative Party is becoming more energised and has been creating a bit of a stir at the Tory party conference this week. The excitement around Liz Truss's speech in one of the side meetings seems to have outshone anything that happened in the main room. In the development of free market economics, it has to be said that Liz Truss is not really a major player. I think that she's an opportunist who fantasises about being another Mrs. Thatcher. However, she has become one of the more vocal and high-profile advocates of smaller state, less regulation, lower tax economics. Her disastrous 7 weeks as Prime Minister saw her trying to introduce policies heading in this new direction, and her recent speeches 1 year later have made it clear that she hasn't given up on this agenda. Here are some of the opinions expressed at her recent Institute for Government speech. She talks about a 10-year plan for reducing the size of the state. She declared that the state has got too big. She said that the growing size and scope of the state has slowed down growth and that levels of tax and regulation are too high. The problem is that the UK public doesn't agree with her. She actually recognised this in her speech when she admitted that the idea of a smaller state no longer commands widespread support and understanding. The recent survey of British social attitudes, published by the National Centre for Social Research, confirms that this more radical free market economics does not have appeal to a majority of voters. Respondents were asked a number of questions such as, should the government be responsible for providing this service or that? 4 answers were possible: definitely should be, probably not be, definitely should not be. In terms of caring for the old, the sick, and helping UK industry and controlling inflation, more than 90% of the public thought the government definitely or probably should. Help for the unemployed, inequality or providing jobs still had around 3/4 definitely or probably should, but clearly a little bit less support than the other policy areas. We can actually break down the definitely probably split. For healthcare and standard of living for the old, there was a remarkably high level of support, 80 to 90% definite. For inflation and helping industry, 2/3 of people were definite. Again, this is really strong support. There was less firm support for inequality, although still a majority, 53%, were definite, and help for the unemployed or providing jobs, for which only around 1/3 were definite. Overall, therefore, it is clear that the UK public sees a very significant role for the government in a number of key policy areas. Interestingly, this applies for both Conservative and Labour supporters. All the answers were amalgamated into an aggregate index where 1 point was added for definitely not, up to 4 points for definitely should be. Even for Tory voters, the average was 3.26, meaning that a clear majority were in favour of the government taking responsibility for many of these key areas. Respondents were also asked about their attitude to taxation and spending on health, education and social benefits. They were given the choice to reduce taxes, increase spending, keep everything the same, or increase taxes and spend more. A majority, 55%, thought that taxes and spending should be increased in order to improve these services. This is a view I completely share, which you'll know if you're a regular viewer of my videos. Only 8% thought that taxes and spending should be reduced. I'm really encouraged by this figure. People aren't fooled by free market economics, which guarantees only one thing, that the rich can get richer and that inequality will increase. I think that the public realise this, particularly those of us that lived through the Thatcher years. Sunak is likely to lose the next election, and this almost certainly means we'll have a new Tory leader. We can expect a royal battle between these two factions, the free marketeers and the Social Democrats, and it may well be that the less government, low tax faction wins. Whether it's Liz Truss or someone else, there's a good chance that the Tory party may be heading in the direction of reduced role for government and lower spending. But there's a big problem in that. It's not what people want. And it's a shame that the Labour Party doesn't realise that there's a massive opportunity to capitalise on this mood, to propose a new, more ambitious economic policy with higher taxes to finance more spending on health, education and social benefits. I hope you found this information useful. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. I'd really appreciate that. Thanks for watching. See you next time.